Cross Stitch Virtual Project group. This is meeting number 5. Next week will be our last meeting. What we're going to do today is work on the back stitch for our antenna and learn how to do a French knot, and then talk about what needs to be done on this project for our meeting for next week. I did find a video that will show us a little more up close how to do a French knot, so we're going to switch over and watch that video in just a second. But for today, you're going to need, of course, your project pattern. You are going to need this Beginning Creative Stitchery publication. And with that, we're specifically going to look at page 7, where it talks about French knot. And then, of course, you're going to need your dragonfly piece that you've been stitching on. You're going to need your needle, your embroidery hoop, and some scissors. So hopefully you have finished actually stitching your body. Let me hold this up a little bit better. Hopefully you have finished stitching your body and outlining your body and stitching your wings and outlining your wings. So Kinley, did you get that far? You were working pretty fast the last time. Let's see, let me pin your video. Let's see what it looks like. Oh yeah, that looks nice. Good job, very good job. Good deal. All right, so today for the antenna, if you look at your pattern, you know, we have switched out some of the colors. So for the antenna on the back stitch, it's telling us to use black thread. So I'm not sure if in your kit, if you've got black thread. So Kinley, do you have black thread or black floss? No? Okay. So the antennas do not take up a lot of floss, so I didn't give myself black floss either. So I just found a darker blue that actually goes with the other kit that we'll start talking about next week. So just to kind of match my dragonfly that I've already started, I've just chosen a darker blue for the antenna, back stitch, and the French knot. So that's what we're going to do with that in a little bit. So if you want to go ahead and pick out whatever color floss you have that you want to use for your antenna and your French knot, that would be fantastic. In our Beginning Creative Stitchery publication on page 7, it does talk about a French knot, and it gives you written instructions how to do a French knot, and it gives you a picture. So if you're a word person or a visual picture person, that's very helpful. I myself need to read it, see it, and watch it. So I was able to find a video online that shows a really good example of how to do a French knot. So we're going to watch that video, and then we're going to come back and work on our piece here in just a second.
Hi, I'm Lizzie. I'm the creator of Stitchable, and I'm going to teach you about making a French knot. This is something that's often difficult for people, something that's very frustrating, and I want to take that frustration out. I want to make it simple and easy so that you don't feel overwhelmed doing these, and it's a new stitch, a new knot that you can incorporate into your portrait and any of your other projects. So let's get started and learn how to make a French knot. So what we have here is a portrait of a bride and groom. The bride has a really beautiful pink dress with a fur jacket and a big fur collar, but what she's missing is her bridal bouquet, and that's where French knots are going to come in. So I've gone ahead and put these horizontal and diagonal green stitches in here, dark green. She has some sprigs of eucalyptus and other narrow dark greens that sort of spring from the bottom of her bouquet. So I've gone ahead and done that with some straight lines. But what we're going to do is create the bigger leaves out of French knot. So to start your French knot, what I like to do is secure the thread on the back. So slip your thread through the existing stitches. Careful not to pull that tail all the way through. And go through maybe once or twice more, a total of 3 or 4 times. What this is doing is securing your block to the back of your portrait so that it's nice and tight. It's not going to pull through on you when you're starting from scratch with a new block to do a French knot. Then we flip to the front of our portrait. I'm going to bring my needle through one of the holes in my fabric. And here's where the French knot begins. nice and tight, you'll see, because we've already secured it on the back. So take your other hand that's not holding the needle here, bring your thread out, wrap your needle around the thread twice. There's once, there's twice on your needle. With the cloth wrapped around the needle like this, take the point of your needle and you bring it back into your fabric. I don't usually go back into the hole where I came through in the first place because I don't want the knot to pull through. And then you pull the thread tight and you pull your needle through the back. So it does take both hands. And that does here. And you keep it nice and tight through to the very end. And then you've made a lovely French knot. So I'm going to do another one symmetrical on the other side. Just do this again. So we pull the needle through from the back and be nice and tight. That cloth is not coming through. We secure the end of it with our opposite hand. We wrap it around our needle twice. With it wrapped around our needle, we will put the tip of the needle back into our fabric. We pull the needle through the back of the portrait or the project, keeping the thread tight with our other finger, and we complete the French knot. That's how we do a regular French knot. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you how to create a loose French knot. Again, for the purposes of creating a larger circle in your portrait or embroidery work. So what we're going to do is we're going to start the same way. We've got our cloth secured from the existing French knot. We're going to pull our needle through the fabric. And what I'm going to do here is instead of pulling things very, very tight and wrapping the cloth around my needle twice, I'm going to keep things a little looser and wrap it around my needle 4 times. 4 times, okay? So I've got a nice loose thread here on my needle. There we go. And then I'm going to pull my needle through the fabric again, but I'm going to let things remain a little bit more loose. And you'll see how the cloth sort of gathers around my stitch there as I pull it through. And then you can kind of keep your finger here in the cloth to kind of adjust how tight or how loose this French knot is going to be. I like the way mine is looking, so I'm going to just pull it through as is. And there we go. Now we've got kind of a medium-sized, looser French knot, and that's going to help create the look of leaves and flowers around our bridal bouquet. We do one more over here for you. Pull it through, wrap it around the needle 4 times, put the needle back in our fabric, let it pull through, even being a little looser than it was on our regular French knot, and there we go.
So as you can see on this video, she'll go really fast. So we're going to fast forward to kind of see her final product here with the floral bouquet being made out of the French knot. So as you can see on her video, here are the, whoops, I don't know what happened there. We'll go back. There we go. So you can see where she made her initial French knots, these smaller green stitches, and then she went back and made some looser ones just to make the French knot a little bit bigger. Fortunately, we are only going to be making 2 French knots, and that's a good thing, but it's also a not so good thing because we need to practice ahead of time. So doing something like this will give you some extra practice in making French knots. Especially with all the different colors, it's a little bit easier to see. And then it also adds a texture and layering to your cross stitch project to give it a little bit more depth versus just the flat stitches that we have been working on so far. So again, we're not going to be making that many French knots, but I just wanted you all to see her process. So if we go, one thing you will notice on her video, let me get to a good spot. Since we are doing a printed cross stitch, our fabric looks different than hers. So this is the Aida cross stitch fabric that we had talked about during our first meeting. So you can see, each of the dots where the needles go in and out of the fabric to create the X's. So when she was making her French knot, she was coming up through one of the holes, but then after she wrapped her floss around the needle and went back to insert her needle in the fabric, she actually did not go back through one of the holes. She went through, it appeared as almost like she went through one of the center of one of the crosses, or one of the X's there. So we don't really have to worry about that with the type of fabric that we have, being that we have the printed fabric right now, but hopefully you will continue to make cross stitch projects and use this Aida cloth in the future. So again, this is the view that we're going for with these French knots and making our antenna. There we go. So we are going to be, like I said, working on the antenna and the ending dots on our antenna. And oh, there's my needle. I was like, my needle fell apart. So we're going to be doing the back stitch on the antenna here and the back stitch on the antenna here. And then you will notice at the end of each antenna, there's a little circle. So on our pattern for this particular project, you can see the circle's a little bit better on the hard copy. The ends of the antennas are French knots. So that's what we're going to practice today, okay? So what we need to do, like we've done every other week, the space of our project that we're working on needs to be in the center of our hoops. So if we can go ahead, and you guys can go ahead, if you haven't already, get your antenna in the center of your hoop. We're going to tighten that up a little bit. And Addie, before you hopped on, we talked about floss color. So on the Dragonfly project pattern, it tells you to use black floss for your antenna. Not everybody got black floss in their kit. So I didn't even give myself black floss. So just from the other threads that you have, because the antenna are really small and they're not going to take a lot of floss, just pick a color that kind of coordinates with your other colors, and that's the floss you're going to use for your antenna and your French knot, okay? So you guys know, I want you to go ahead and get your needle threaded so we can do our back stitching, because that's where we're going to start on the antenna. All right, so we have our long tail and we have our short tail, and hopefully you guys have become very proficient in doing your back stitch because of having done your body and your wings. So Addie, can you give me a thumbs up if you were able to get all of your cross stitches and your back stitching done? Were you able to get all that done? No, still working on it? Okay, that's okay. You work at your own pace. Okay, so in the video that we just watched, she had a different technique for starting her floss, which I thought was very interesting and probably easier than the way that I showed you how to start your floss. So I think that's how we should start today. So if you flip over to the back of your project, since the antenna are connected to the head, we already have floss here that we can use to connect and stabilize this floss for the antenna. So what she did in the video was just to feed the floss through the stitches that are already there, and she left a little bit of a tail, and then she went back. You guys see this? Okay. And then she went back and just fed that floss through a couple more times to stabilize that floss. So I think, especially for beginners, this is an easier way to establish your floss instead of trying to hold it like the way that I showed you. So as you can see there, that floss is really well stabilized now, so it should not pull through. So we're going to flip back over to the front, and we are very quickly going to go back and do our back stitch. So if you remember when we had our back stitch lesson a couple weeks ago, On the back stitch, you start a little bit out on your line, and then you stitch backwards towards you. So here we're going to come up from behind right there, and we are going to go in on that line close to the head, so we're stitching backwards. And the important thing to remember about back stitching is to try to make sure your stitches are the same length. So we're going to, I want everybody to just take a few seconds and do the back stitching on one side of your antenna. And then when we get to the end, we will do a French knot. Antenna?
Did you do the little circle?
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Did you do the little circle on the top?
No, not yet. That's the next step we're going to do. So you just have your straight line, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we're going to do the next step, which is the French knot, which is the circle at the top. Okay? So you guys will notice on your pattern, it's a little easier to see on your printed pattern versus the fabric print, but there is a little circle right there. So it's not very big, smaller than a piece of rice. So when you do your French knot, so right now your thread is on the back side of your project, right? Everybody's on the back side? Okay. So when you do your French knot, I'm going to try and hold this up so you guys can see it. You're just going to come up on one side of your circle. Okay, so we're going to come up on one side and go back down on the other. Okay, so you're going to come up on one side of your circle, and you're going to pull your floss all the way through, so it's nice and taut on the back. And this is going to be, you're going to have to be able to use both your hands on this. You're going to have to hold your hoop, use your needle, and hold your floss with two hands. So, well, good luck is all I can say. We'll practice. This is why we practice. Okay, so hold your hoop with your right hand, because everybody's right-handed, and then you're just going to grab your floss with your left hand, and then in between your fingers, however you can feel comfortable, holding your hoop and your floss with your left hand. Okay, you guys have to figure out what's comfortable for you. Then to do your French knot, you're going to take that thread. Everybody watching, so you know what to do? So you're going to hold your needle next to the thread, and you're going to wrap the thread, your floss, around your needle 2 times. And I know that's really, really tiny, but can you guys see where it's wrapped around twice? I know it's really tiny. Then what I would suggest that you do is your index finger that's helping to hold the needle. Put that on the floss that is wrapped around your needle. Everybody watching? So you have your floss wrapped twice. You're going to put your finger on that floss to hold it still, and then we're going to take our needle and insert it from top to bottom, just right next to that stitch. Okay, so once you get the needle into the fabric, you can lift this index finger, but you need to still hold on this side. So you're going to hold the left piece of thread pretty snug, and then you're going to pull your needle and the floss back down through your fabric. And hopefully, do it kind of slow. And you don't want to pull it really tight. So now we have this cute little French knot. So I'm trying to show it to you.
I just got like
get it?
this with a knot in it.
Say that again.
I just got like this where I need to pull it through with a knot in it.
Yeah, you're gonna pull it through so it has this little knot. That's why it's called a French knot. So Kinley, you shouldn't have any floss sticking out on top. Yep, just keep pulling, but pull slow until you get this little knot right here.
There's a small knot in it, so it's just like.
In your floss? Yeah, in your floss. See if you can just go ahead and pull it, and that might just add a little extra dimension to your antenna point there.
But that's all it did.
Okay. So if you take your needle and put it flat against your fabric and push, it should catch on that knot. That's how you know if your knot is a knot.
Mine's just like another stitch here, but like up there, but in the middle.
So maybe you didn't wrap it around your needle enough. So come back through and try again. Just leave that stitch there and then try to make a new French knot just at the end. And make sure you wrap your fabric. Here, I'll just show you guys again. Okay, so you're gonna hold your floss, and you need to make sure that this needle gets wrapped twice with the floss. Hold your floss down and reinsert your needle into your fabric. Oh, and I dropped my floss. There we go. And then as you slowly pull it through, like I said, French knots take a little extra practice. So actually my first knot was better than that one. Okay, we'll do it again. I'll show you one more time, okay? So just as a practice. So you're gonna bring your floss up. Okay, then you need to hold your floss with your left hand, and you wanna hold it kind of tight, but not real tight. Wrap that floss around your needle twice, maybe even 3 times if you want to. And hold, oops, I let go of a loop. Hang on, I gotta catch that loop back. There we go. Hold that onto your needle. Then reinsert your needle into your fabric. And if you will know if you're making your French knot correctly if it looks like your floss is going down a tunnel. It'll look like it's going down inside of a little tunnel. And then you have a French knot. I'm trying to remember back to when I was learning how to cross stitch and do embroidery, and I think French knot was probably the hardest, for me, the hardest one to learn. What about you, Miss Emily? You've been doing this for a little while.
I think the French knot, yeah. And then the back stitch, getting them the same length.
French knot. So I'm just gonna do it on a random spot. Okay, Kinley? All right, so Addie, you watch too. So you're gonna come up from the back of your fabric, pull all the way through, okay? And it's secure, so the fabric's it's not gonna come through our fabric on the front. And so you have your hand that you're holding your needle with. Do what? So you have your hand that you're holding your needle with, and then you have your left hand. So you need to grab your floss with your left hand, hold it between your thumb and your index finger. That way the rest of your fingers can hold your hoop. And you need that to be a little snug, okay? So you don't want it really loose like that. You want it nice and straight. Then you're gonna take your needle and this floss, this part right here, and you're gonna wrap it around your needle, and let's do it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Okay? Can you guys see that? Okay, and that's a little blurry. Then this floss needs to be secured to your needle. So put your finger on it to hold it so it doesn't slip off the end. So that's secure. This left side, this side here, the floss is still straight and tight. And then you're going to take your needle and not right exactly where you came up from the back, but just to the side a little bit. You're going to reinsert your needle. Hold this piece of floss really straight. When you let go of this, it's going to kind of look jumbled, but that's okay. It's not going to be jumbled. Hold this straight, and then you're going to pull your needle through. So do you guys see here where it looks like it's kind of going in a little tunnel of floss? That's what you want to see. And you're just going to pull that really slow. And then it eventually will collapse on itself. So that one's it's a little looser probably than what I would like for it to be. So I got that a little loose so I can pull it up, but then pull it back down and make it a little tighter. Okay. So I'll do one more. Come up from the back. Hold your floss. Pinky or not pinky, but index finger and thumb. You want it to be straight, but not real tight. We're going to wrap it 3 times. Secure it with your index finger on your right hand. Then reinsert your needle close to where you came out. And see if you pull this, when you insert your needle, pull this finger back a little bit and that tightens that up. And that will make your knot a little tighter. Pull your floss through really slow. And then you will end up with a French knot. So like I said, the French knot, it just takes a lot of practice. So what you need to do, our time is starting to kind of run out on us for today. But what I want you to do for next week is to, if you're not happy with the way your antenna turned out today on our practice run, you can always take this floss out and do it all over again, which is probably what I will do. Because see, look here. See my first knot? It's kind of disconnected from the antenna. You guys see that? There's a little white space there. I don't want that. So I'll probably take all this out and redo it. Okay. And obviously I'll take these knots out too. So for next week, make sure that you have all of your cross stitches done, all of your outline done on your body and your wings. Make sure that you do the back stitching on your antenna and do your 2 French knots. And then I want you to, if you could have your corners done, that would be great. If not, at least start on them. And we're going to review real quick how to do that. Okay. Now the corners on this pattern are just straight cross stitches. There's no outline. It's just straight stitching. So on your pattern, under cross stitch where it says corners, that's where we decided whatever color we're going to use. Okay, so I'm using color 798, which is just the color I'm using on my antennas. Oh, I think that's trash. Okay, so again, you're going to move your hoop to the space. Now, you're not going to be able to get these corners into the center of your hoop, because if you try to do that, then you're not going to be able to get all of your fabric looped in on the hoop. Okay, so you're going to have to work to the side just a little bit. You're going to tighten your hoop just like we've always done, and then go back and make your fabric kind of snug. Okay, so with these corners, you have to decide what direction you want to go with your floss. Okay, are you going to work in columns, so from top to bottom, and then bottom to top and top to bottom, or are you going to work left to right, right to left, kind of zigzagging back and forth? So you, as the creator of this, need to figure out how you want to do that. I usually work top to bottom, but that's just me. So you're going to go through and you're going to start your first stitch, making sure, of course, on the back that you catch that tail, like we've talked about in the past, to secure your floss to your project. And we're just going to do that ABCD pattern like we did on the body and the wings. Okay. So I have 1X almost done here. And since I am working in a column, so top to bottom, my next stitch is going to be this X right here. But I need to make sure that I catch the tail on the back to secure my floss. Again, working in that ABCD pattern. Can look and make sure. So see there, I caught my floss, so I should be okay. I can let go of that tail now and then just focus on doing my cross stitch. Because as you guys know, it's important to keep the back looking just as clean as possible, so that you don't have those stray floss pieces coming through. So obviously it's not as pretty as the X's on the front, but it's very neat, it's very organized, and it's pretty minimal for floss on the back. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I hope you have a great weekend.